Order, please. Pepperoni is not good for you, Mr. Van Loon, so I will have to go with mushrooms and vegetarian. Sorry. Good morning, everyone, and I have just brought the meeting to order. We have, in the first hour, we have Rogers and the Fédération Nationale des Communications, and I think each one of you who are presenting, both as a unit, Rogers and the Fédération, should remember that you have 10 minutes to present. I will give you a 2-minute, sort of warning that you only have 2 more minutes. After that, there is a question and answer. And I will tell you when we get to the question and answer how that works. So what I will do is we will begin now with Rogers, and which, I don't know if you'll split your 10 minutes or one person is going to speak. Is it you, Ms. Watson, who will do the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. Please begin.
Madame la Présidente, je vous remercie, ainsi que les autres.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank you and the other committee members for having invited us to talk about the current challenges facing local media. My name is Colette Watson, Vice President of Television and Broadcasting Operations for Rogers Media, and with me Susan Wheeler, VP of Regulatory for Rogers. At Rogers, we are committed to innovation and the celebration of Canadian culture. It's been our legacy ever since Ted Rogers revolutionized radio in this country with the first FM signal. We honor a diversity of voices by delivering content to Canadians that enlightens, informs, and entertains. On the local level, we operate under the City brand in 7 markets across the country, including Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Montreal, and in the province of Saskatchewan, and operate 53 local music and news talk radio stations across the country. We also operate 5 local multicultural TV stations under the Omni brand in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. At Omni, we provide programming to more than 40 distinct ethnic and cultural groups in more than 40 different languages. Across our cable footprint in Ontario, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland, we have 41 community TV channels offering coverage of local events and issues in both official languages. In fact, in 15 of these 41 communities, Rogers TV is the only source of local TV news and information content, and last year close to 30,000 community groups participated in the creation of this community content.
Hearings, the Canadian media industry has been in a state of transformation for a few years. The economic model for local television is under significant pressure as advertising dollars shift from linear to digital platforms. We've had to adapt to the new realities of this changing economic model over the last few years, not just for financial reasons, but also to meet changing audience demands and trends. As Canadians, we lead the way in data consumption globally. We want to consume content where we want, when we want, and on the device of our choosing. There is no doubt the consumer is firmly in the driver's seat. As broadcasters, we must move with this changing tide, and the successful companies will be the ones who adapt the fastest. While the industry is still in a state of transition and new business models have not yet been firmly established, we believe there are 3 immediate actions the government and its legislative arms can take to help navigate the digital transition. Number 1. Fully compensate local broadcasters for costs associated with the government's plan to repatriate and repurpose the 600 megahertz spectrum and create a fund for local programming with a portion of the auction proceeds. Number 2, modernize the government's funding tools and programs to reflect Canada's digital reality. And number 3, ensure sustainable financing for local news and information programming resulting from the CRTC's review of local and community television programming. First, allow me to give you a sense of the economics of the broadcasting industry today. Based on the CRTC's latest statistical and financial report on conventional television, the private over-the-air or OTA television sector in Canada has experienced a 16% decline over the past 4 years. In 2014, Profits before interest and taxes, or PBIT, for private local television stations dropped industry-wide to minus $138.7 million, and the PBIT margin decreased to minus 7.7%. As the smallest conventional television group, Rogers Station have been disproportionately impacted by this decline, with a PBIT margin of minus 37.2% in 2014. For niche stations like Omni, the situation is dire. Since 2011, Omni has experienced a cumulative decline in revenue of 74%. That is a drastic and unsustainable decline, a decline that has forced us to take costs out of the business in an effort to keep these stations on the air. And while these challenges are real and significant, we do remain committed to finding a new business model for the production and dissemination of local news and information programming, one that reflects how, when, and where Canadians consume the content they trust and rely on. The 600 megahertz spectrum is currently occupied by local OTA television stations. In August of last year, the Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development issued its decision to repurpose a good portion of this spectrum band for mobile broadband use. Rogers supports the repurposing of this spectrum, but we have deep concerns about the impact it will have on local television. We have expressed these concerns to the Department directly and through our trade association, the Canadian Association of Broadcasters. It is important for this committee to know that the cost of relocating to new channel allotments will be significant and, in some cases, totally prohibitive for certain broadcasters. For us alone, we estimate the cost to relocate our stations to be over $20 million at a time when we have yet to fully depreciate the major investments we made to convert to digital transmission in 2011. On an industry basis, the cost could be anywhere from $520 million to $1.25 billion, depending on the complexity of the transition. The timing, quite frankly, couldn't be worse. Given the fragile state of the OTA television sector here in Canada, and that the auction for this spectrum will likely generate more than $5 billion in revenue, we urge the federal government to fully compensate affected broadcasters for their relocation costs and create a fund for local television programming with a portion of the proceeds of this auction. South of the border, we note that the U.S. Congress has already agreed to compensate local broadcasters in full for their relocation costs. This was made clear to local broadcasters well before the commencement of the U.S. auction in March of this year. Unfortunately, we have yet to receive a response to our requests for compensation. We hope this committee will help bring attention to what risks being a very serious and immediate threat to the availability of local television in Canada. Our second proposal is the suggestion that, as part of the Minister's upcoming digital consultations, this committee recommend a full review of its current cultural funding tools and support programs. The policy objectives of the funds are still very valid, but the framework is outdated and has not kept up with the rapid pace of change in the industry. We would welcome the opportunity to participate in such a review. And finally, our third proposal is one we presented to the CRTC as part of its proceeding on local and community television programming. In that proceeding, we proposed a model that would allow companies like Rogers, Québécois, Bell, and Shaw Chorus, who own both cable and local television stations, to reallocate funding from the community channels they operate in major markets towards either OTA stations or community channels in smaller markets. This would, for example, allow us to reallocate funds from our Rogers TV station in Toronto, a market that is well served by local broadcasters, including City and Omni, and direct these funds to a small market like, say, Bathurst, New Brunswick. Bathurst is a bilingual community that is not currently served by a local OTA station, and this would ensure people there are given access to truly local news and information in both English and French. We recognize that these suggestions are not long-term solutions to the current challenges facing local television, but we believe they do offer local broadcasters an immediate path that can help navigate what are currently very turbulent and financially difficult times in the traditional media space. We hope our suggestions today will encourage further discussions on the development of new and creative policies that will result in the continued availability of local content in markets large and small across Canada. Thank you.
Ms. Watson. Now we will go to the Fédération Nationale des Communications. Ms. Saint-Onge?
Bon matin.
10 minutes, please.
Pardon?
10 minutes.
Oui. Bon matin.
Good morning. Allow me to introduce myself. Pascal Saint-Onge, President of the Fédération Nationale des Communications, and my colleague, Mr. Pierre Roger, Secretary General and Treasurer of the FNC. Thank you so much for hearing us on the issue of information and more particularly on the future of regional information. The Fédération Nationale des Communications is a union organization affiliated with the Confédération des Syndicats Nationaux, the CSN. It brings together over 88 unions and approximately 6,000 workers from the communications and culture sectors. The FNC is present in most of Quebec's large media and represents the vast majority of salaried journalists and independent journalists in Quebec. We also have unions in Ontario and in New Brunswick. Among some of the media sectors we are present in, well, there is Radio-Canada, La Presse, the papers of the Groupe Capital Média, Le Devoir, Le Journal de Montréal, Transcontinental, TVA, Cogeco, l'Acadie Nouvelle, and many others. We represent people from the written media, from television, radio, and increasingly in digital media. In the brief we are tabling, we address several issues which the information sector faces today. From a structural point of view, traditional media is dealing with financial difficulties which impede their first mission, which is to inform. Yes, the arrival of the Internet, along with technological change, has facilitated access to information and provides an opportunity to find new audiences. The trend towards digital media and social media, for the most part free, is increasing. Nevertheless, these sources of information which deprive traditional media from a major source of revenue are mostly broadcasting platforms rather than producers of information, and this situation, which turns on its head the model of traditional media, involves a crisis in information which, in the long term, might become a crisis for democracy. In addition to these deep changes, strategies of concentration and convergence which predominate in this sector make information more commercial and therefore endanger its quality and diversity. Too often, random stories, anecdotes, and sensational stories are broadcast, and the first objective is to please. We have to increase the viewers because this is the only way to increase revenues. Of course, in this environment, the job of journalists is becoming more precarious. Journalists have to do more on more platforms, and as for independent journalists, given the concentration in the sector, independent workers have no power to improve their working conditions. Independent journalists are seeing their integrity and independence increasingly challenged. The FNC invites you in your consultations to redefine your vision, our vision of what media is. Most Western countries are actually trying to improve the accessibility, quality, and diversity of information, and we should do the same. So we have 10 recommendations for you, which we believe will provide the necessary support so the media can play their role as the fourth estate. Recommendation 1. The FNC believes that the implementation of ways to finance quality and diversified information has become necessary in Canada and Quebec. All funding scenarios should be put on the table. We especially like the approach of payroll tax credits. This type of measure could help media companies which are in dire financial straits to maintain their staffing levels or even hire journalists in order to improve the plurality and diversity of information. As well, this type of measure would help employ advertising representatives or even IT specialists. Recommendation 2, the federal government has to work on implementing a permanent fund for local and regional production and programming in order to allow media to increase their presence in the regions. Funds have to be dedicated to regional media production. Recommendation 3, CBC Radio-Canada also have to be involved in the creation of local and regional information. The Crown Corporation has to be more present in the regions, and to do this, it must benefit from sustainable funding, and its leaders have to be more aware of the reality on the ground in the regions. Recommendation 4, in order to help people access quality information, high-speed internet should be made an essential service. Recommendation 5, the government must implement subsidy programs to support innovations on digital platforms. These kinds of programs already exist for cultural enterprises. Many small media don't have the financial resources to develop better web applications. People are turning more and more towards the web, and therefore media organizations have to be able to develop attractive and innovative platforms which do the job. Recommendation 6. The turbulent situation in which our media companies are operating in today calls on us to put together a task force on the regulation of internet corporations. We need to find tools to protect, in the digital age, our production of local content. Our leaders must require of these media giants who are benefiting from local and national markets to contribute to the funding of quality information and diverse information. These companies have to submit to the tax rules of the countries in which they are operating. Recommendation 7. Our federal and provincial governments must immediately focus on the issue of concentration and convergence in the media industry. Clear impediments must be imposed to these media giants in order to limit their strategies which undermine the quality and diversity of information. Further, it is important to implement a better framing of media and their responsibility to inform the public. In other words, locally, regionally, and nationally, our leaders must immediately address the issue of protecting the diversity of voices. Recommendation 8. The FNC-CSN believes that it is necessary to completely review the role and governance of the CRTC. In our view, the appointment rules have to be reviewed. People who sit on the CRTC should not be appointed for political partisan reasons. The direct intervention of the Harper government when the CRTC was asked by industry to regulate web giants was particularly disgraceful. The CRTC has to exist to ensure that license holders abide by the conditions they are operating under, and this applies even more for information. The CRTC has to be involved in this rethinking on the way to legislate and regulate the web, and we all have to take means together to protect the local and national media sectors. Recommendation 9. We believe that the various levels of government must work harder to ensure that advertising budgets should go towards Canadian and Quebecois enterprises. More and more people are operating on social media networks, and social media giants do not abide by Canadian and Quebecois content production rules. Recommendation 10. At a time when social media are becoming bigger and bigger, we believe that the federal government has to work with its provincial partners to create education programs about the media. Canadians have to be able to differentiate between real news and false news. And we all know there's a lot of false news on the web, or fake news. Canadians have to be able to make the difference between publicity and promotion, which masquerades as news. You probably know that we've already discussed these potential solutions with several media companies in Quebec, and also with our unions and members. Even though we know it's impossible to reach unanimity on these issues, we seem to feel there is a consensus. We have to act quickly. Several measures, especially economic ones, can be implemented temporarily to allow companies to move towards the digital platforms and to build new business models which will assure the sustainability of information. Our societies are becoming more and more complex, and social media help polarize ideas, and therefore it's really important for our media to present quality information on good platforms so that Canadians are exposed to many points of view. Thank you for listening to us, and we will be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much. And now we go to the question section, and this is a 7-minute round in which members will ask questions of you. The 7 minutes includes questions and answers, so I would like everyone to be as concise as possible so we can get as many questions and as much information from our witnesses as possible. And so we begin with Ms. de Brussen for the Liberal Party.
Merci à tous les témoins. Thank you to all the witnesses. My first question was for Rogers, because you mentioned in your presentation that in moving to digital platforms, our current frameworks are outdated and have not kept up with rapid changes in the industry. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you see is outdated and needs change.
Absolutely, thank you. We refer specifically to the CMF criteria and the CAVCO tax credit systems. They don't allow the genres that they allow for funding are perhaps need some updating. They don't allow for local news and information and the type of programming that is most popular with Canadians today. With respect to tax credits, I think there might be something my colleague would add.
Yeah, and with respect to the tax credits, I think our main recommendation is to review the eligible productions that can receive the benefit of the tax credit program, and look to see whether there's measures that can be taken to support local news and information programming. Traditionally, those have been excluded categories because they've been well financed and supported through advertising revenue, and that's given the digital transition has obviously changed. The other programs that we would believe should be in scope are things like the Canadian Periodical Fund as well. That currently doesn't provide any support for digital distribution, and given that that is likely the trend going forward, we think that is something that the department should consider.
As you've been we see a lot in the media these days, or we hear a lot about people cutting the cord, moving away from cable and to digital platforms. How are you facing into that challenge? First of all, monetizing content in the digital realm, and also are there any specific copyright challenges that are posed by that switch over?
I'll start and I'll let my colleague discuss the copyright challenges. With respect to cable erosion, for the last few years it's been within the pie, the regulated pie, but with respect to our community channels, we've seen a 1.5 to 2% decline per year for the last 4 years. And so, as the members may be aware, community television is financed by 2% of cable revenues. And so the community television financing has declined significantly since 2010, which has made it difficult to produce programming in those very small local markets where sometimes it's the only television media available to those markets. With respect to monetizing in the face of cable erosion, we have to look to different platforms. We will be looking at direct-to-consumer opportunities. We are looking at how to monetize online, and we are looking to create new programming either through branded content or integrations that will allow advertisers to also reach the audiences they seek.
So as more media consumption moves online, obviously the issue of piracy and the illegal consumption of content becomes a larger issue. So the government, in its last review of the Copyright Act, indicated that it had built in a 5-year review time frame for that. And I think that the issue of piracy needs to be a priority in that next review in terms of the tools that we currently have to remove that content and exercise our territorial rights for that content in market.
Et vous avez parlé un petit peu à ce sujet aussi. Est-ce que vous avez aussi
You also talked about that issue. Do you have anything to say about that? Well, clearly, we are seeing that traditional television, well, people are cutting the cord. More and more people are doing that, and they're moving towards smart TV and the web. Our concern has to do more about the information itself. Today, television information is produced by general television stations, but on smart TV, there's still a lot of development and innovation to make in terms of applications so that users have access to that information. And that will probably look very differently from the way television today produces news. Mr. Roger can complete my answer if he wants, but this requires investments in innovative technology, in programming, and a lot of companies just don't have the money to do that. La Presse Plus, so the daily La Presse, did not have a tablet application. This is something that's very, very new for newspapers. It'll probably work, we hope so, but this required between $40 and $60 million in investments, and I don't know if smaller markets have that kind of money, especially when it comes to regional and local markets. I don't think they can develop those technologies, so it would take the help of the federal government to do that. Yes, the traditional business model works less and less well in the media sector, be it television and radio, but mostly as it applies to the written media. So to deal with these new platforms, so on the one hand, you have traditional advertising revenues which are going down, and on the other hand, we have to develop these new media platforms, which again requires significant investment. So yes, there is advertising on these digital platforms, but they don't bring in a lot of money, much less than in traditional media. So for several years now, we believe that the different levels of government will have to make that investment. It could be tax credits with regard to on payrolls. It could be additional funding dedicated to transitioning towards these digital platforms.
Thank you. Yes, that's it. Very well done. Yes, you've ended your time, Mr. Bouston. And now, Mr. Wall for the Conservative Party.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll start with Rogers. Congratulations. It appears that you have either the first or second largest media outlet in this country. You've made some good choices, I see, with radio. The specialty channels have certainly treated you well. But what hasn't treated you well? I guess that's the first statement I'm going to ask you to clarify. You've owned a lot of FM stations and radio. I think your specialty channels have done well. Maybe you've overpaid for some products. We won't talk about the NHL. But what's gone well for you right now?
It's not that it's gone wrong, it's that the environment is evolving. Things are changing, and as with many things in life, frameworks don't necessarily move at the pace of consumer evolution. And so we're here saying there's a change. We want to operate within the Canadian cultural framework that has been established. We have been a proud partner of that framework for 50 years. But it's changing, and we're here to say we've got some ideas on how we can evolve this together for the benefit of Canadians and good, strong, profitable Canadian companies that create jobs for Canadians and pay taxes to the government. And so we want to evolve, and we're hoping just to keep pace with the pace of that evolution.
Well, you're a distributor, you're in broadcasting, you're in telecom, you're in publishing, you're into everything here. So we look to you. Other than, looking at the CBC and their umbrella, you're the private people that got to lead the way. So lead.
Right, and so that's why we're here. We've got 3 concrete suggestions for you to look at.
Yeah, I got them. The compensation, but everybody wants to be compensated by government.
Well,
I'm tired of that,
we
actually.
wouldn't need to be compensated if you weren't repatriating the spectrum we already occupy. So we're just saying, if you want to expropriate, that's great, but we should be compensated since we've already made a digital transformation change in 2011 based on a government policy. We haven't even fully depreciated all of those costs, and those are unrecoverable costs. It's not like we can hang out a shingle and make some money off of this. And so that's the kind of thing. And as for the Canadian Media Fund, it's stuck in the 80s, and we just need to bring it to 2016.
We haven't even updated our Broadcast Act. Why would we do what you're suggesting? Anyways, the transformation, talk about that, because you're supposed to be a leader in digital, so you should be, and I know I've sat with groups here in the last 2 weeks in my office, all they complain about is Yahoo and Facebook and Google. But when are we going to take these companies on, and what do we have to do to take these companies on to get into the digital game?
Well, these are global companies with global scale, and we operate in the world's best country, but it doesn't have the kind of scale that those companies have. We have created and obtained cultural and copyrights for content that can be easily usurped or monetized on a bigger, larger platform than we can compete with. With respect to leading the way, we like to innovate. We want to innovate. We just need to have a framework that allows and enables that digital transformation. With respect to being leaders, I'm happy to point out that last week or the week before, we launched the first direct-to-home sports channel application in the country. I can give you a 30-second commercial on Sportsnet now if you'd like, but we were the first to do this. Yep. I was hired by Ted Rogers, and Mr. Rogers needed to be first at everything. He wanted to try. If it didn't work, that's fine, but he would go out and try again. And that DNA still exists in this company. We still want to be first. We want to succeed. He was also a patriot. We want to succeed in this country, and we're just here to offer some suggestions on how we can do that together.
Now, the publishing industry, you've had some failures, you've had some successes. Where's it going? Because you've got a big umbrella here.
Yeah, we came here primarily to talk about the state of local television, but the challenges that are facing local television have been facing the publishing industry for a much longer period of time. And we have tried to get ahead of that curve by introducing new products like Texture, which is our digital aggregation product, Netflix for magazines, as we like to call it. And, that has slowly it's slowly been gaining traction here in Canada, but again, it's a slow process, and this, firm business models have yet to be established.
I have to move on. Mrs. St. Ange, we'll just talk. The one thing I didn't like in your proposal at all is all government institutions should be encouraged to increase advertised spending. Why do you think it's the people of Canada that needs to spend on your behalf?
En fait, je voulais pas dire que le gouvernement
I didn't mean that the federal government should pay more in advertising. What I meant was that when the government invests in advertising, it should do so, first of all, in Quebec and Canadian companies, and not on Facebook or on other platforms, because otherwise the money goes to multinationals, which in no way contribute to our tax system or to the production of information which is local or regional. So as long as the media won't have completely transitioned towards digital platforms, they'll need support, and it's the role of the government to support them.
But you said in your report, only 10% of local media revenues were derived from digital advertising. Nobody's making money in this country on digital advertising. It's cheap. You know it's cheap.
Oui, absolument. Ça fait partie de la...
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the problem. But in that regard, Internet giants like Google and Facebook, they don't have the same expenses as media do to produce information. All they do is transmit it, and therefore their advertising rates are much lower. So what we're suggesting is that there be a level playing field for all players, because right now Facebook, Google, and other giants have advantages others don't. In other words, in Canada, we have rules to force media organization to reinvent in content, but the media giants don't have that obligation.
To Mr. Nantel from the New Democrats.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Alors, effectivement,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, you're right. These are, it's unbelievable to believe that those making the most money are American companies which don't charge sales tax in their contracts. And I'm one of the clients. I buy advertising. So this is exactly what's happening today, and it's a problem. I have a question for the representatives from Rogers, and thanks to all of you for being here. I especially appreciate the fact that you've taken two angles, regulation and television. I'm realizing more and more that all of the stakeholders and players in the industry, the creators, distributors, everybody is starting to feel that the system it's not holding up anymore. There are huge players coming out of nowhere, and they are just changing the entire landscape. So my question is this: can we count on large players like Rogers to delegate representatives to various sectors, for instance, production, distribution, internet at home, internet at business? When the minister conducts her consultations, we are going to need the point of view of all of the smaller players and not just the big ones who will often make general statements. So can we expect that from Rogers, to have a representative from each of your sections to contribute to the debate? What I've noticed several times amongst other players, a certain level of discomfort. In theory, the 600 megahertz is to the advantage of some of your sections, but you, as a broadcaster, it's a problem. So again, can we get representatives from the smaller people within your organization and Québécois as well? Yes, absolutely. We would be pleased to do just that. With us are people from the written media. We had a limit of 2 people to sit at the table here. But if you want to strike a task force with several representatives, we'd gladly participate. Well, that's great. Thank you very much, because I think everybody's seeing that this huge ship is listing, and we can't patch the leaks anymore because the holes are getting bigger and bigger. A small, brief question, because I'd like to ask a question to the other witnesses. Is it correct to say that, and Ted might smile, is radio used to work well, used to make money, but today it is doing fairly well because it has the lowest operation cost. Is that a valid statement, especially in the regions? Yes, I think it's fair to say that. Our radio stations are doing well. But there are still challenges in every media, and we're starting to recognize that. There are new platforms like Spotify, iHeartRadio. These platforms are in Canada now, and they might start bringing down revenues of more traditional radio. But for now, it's stable. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for your presenting your views, because our study here has as a purpose is that we help regional stations, and we know you have lots of them, and we really want to maintain our cultural diversity. So I'm always wondering what the position is of the Minister of Industry, because at the end of the day, this is a business. Business models are changing. And now I'd like to come to the 10 recommendations of the FNC. They're great. We've also heard other recommendations. I could go through all of them, but in fact 9, because I missed the first one, since unfortunately, and I asked my clerk, why did we not have your brief? I certainly hope we can get your brief in both English and French, because I think it's really important that everybody get this information you presented, which is which gives a very good overview. What was your first recommendation? Well, we said that all kinds of economic measures have to be taken to help organizations transition to digital platforms. For us, it would be the fastest way to create that transition, but it would also maintain organizations at arm's length. We believe that payroll tax credits could be very useful, and this would help companies retain their journalists and hire new ones. But we think much more should be done. There are a lot of issues. One is the development of new technologies. Companies have to be able to hire web integrators and web designers, and also we have to diversify audiences, and we have to find new advertising revenues to raise money. So certainly we'd like these to be temporary measures so that the industry could catch its breath and develop new business models. You just said industry, and that's a good point, because R&D has to be done here as well. We're not just talking culture as an artisanal artifact. We're dealing with technologies and new platforms. A little earlier, you also talked about government advertising. I know that my colleague here is afraid we could be spending too much. But I would also raise another point which was addressed by our Minister of Heritage. She said that official languages is the responsibility of all departments. Everyone has to respect the Official Languages Act. It's not just one minister who's responsible for official languages, but everyone is. So if we want to support regional media, each department has to be on board. Each department has to look after its regional media. I also agree with you when you talked about managing the internet giants like Google, etc. Do you think that unions would participate in this debate as you're doing now? Would unions be willing to present a certain point of view and represent Quebec culture? So do you think, in fact, that the solution is international? Yes, I would agree with that. And in fact, we're quite concerned about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is going to close doors for signatory countries.
Please finish your sentence.
De passer de nouvelles réglementations.
We think it's important that all countries should pass regulations to better control.
Go to Mr. Vandal for the Liberals.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My first question is to Rogers. In your presentation, you stated a few times, both in your presentation and verbally, that under modernizing tools and programs, the policy objectives of the funds are still very valid, but the framework is outdated. You said the frameworks don't move with the industry evolution, I believe, a few minutes ago. I'm wondering, could you speak more on that? I think you've started already, but I'm having trouble with the echo in the room. Could you just say more what exactly that means? The frameworks are outdated and the frameworks don't move with industry evolution.
Yeah, so there are three primary funding mechanisms for the content that we currently provide: the Canadian Media Fund, CAVCO tax credits, and the Canadian Periodical Fund. And all of those programs right now don't necessarily support digital distribution where we believe the industry is moving. On the CAVCO side, it requires you to exploit the content first on a linear platform before it can be so if you have a first window digital distribution, that's not something that you're going to get tax credits for. On the CMF, a lot of their funding formula is based on total hours tuned, so that's a linear metric that it really measures and rewards volume of content being repeated and watched. We know that linear viewing is obviously decreasing and people are watching more content on demand. The funding mechanism should reflect that. On the Canadian Periodical Fund, right now, there's no support for digital distribution. They measure content being occupied on a the physical space on a page. That's obviously not something that's a relevant metric going forward in a digital environment.
Okay. Several months ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, we had a representative of the CRTC that was actually making in delegation, and they said that there's more than enough money in the system to support the creation of news and local information programming. Do you agree with that position?
I would say that there's an opportunity to reallocate within the existing system. More than enough might not be the description I would use, but things can be made better with the proper reallocation within the system.
Is not your first position that the framework is outdated, is that not contrary to what the CRTC are in fact saying? That there's more than enough system to adapt, more than enough money, resources in the system to adapt to help the broadcasters and the media industry going forward? Is that not a contrary position?
No, I'm just saying more is maybe not. There's enough, not necessarily more than enough. So there, within the current pie, I think the proper reallocation would alleviate many of these things. We've tabled a proposal with the CRTC, and we believe that solution would solve many issues. There are still there are a lot of opportunities to update and modernize and change, but I do agree with the Commission that we don't need to increase the amount of money required either through the 5% fund that exists today, but for the, I don't know that I would say more than enough. I would just say within the current pie we can reallocate to alleviate.
Is the proposal that you tabled with CRTC the same presentation you've made this morning, or is there changes?
No, this is consistent with what we've filed.
Okay. Okay, good. Question about community stations. In your presentation, you have, how do you define a community TV station? You have 41 of them, I believe?
Yes. Those are licensed entities by the CRTC, and so a cable company or a BDU, a broadcast distribution undertaking, has two options. They can take 5% of their television revenues and send them to the Canadian Media Fund, or they can create a terrestrial network of local community channels called for local expression. Of that 5%, 2 points of that can be taken to fund those community channels. They are done by license, though, and so what happens if in Bathurst you have, I'm pulling a number out of the air, it may be you have 30,000 customers on 2% of those revenues. That's the money you have for Bathurst. You can't take that money and move it to Miramichi. You can't take it and move it to St. John's. You can't take the money from Toronto and move it to St. John's or Gander. And so we have to operate within those license frameworks. And so we are proposing some flexibility to maybe spend less in Toronto and more in Bathurst or in Gander or Corner Brook as need would dictate.
So 5% of the subscription revenues from BDUs go to support Canadian programming?
Yes.
Am I right?
So the other 3 points go to the Canadian Media Fund.
Okay, okay. Is that something that, in your opinion, we should, or the CRTC should review? Is that a recommendation we should be making? Should it be increased? Should it be decreased?
No, we agree with the current. We agree with the Commission saying that 5% is more than enough. We think we can within that framework. What we've asked the Commission for is flexibility to take from Toronto and give to the smaller markets, and then look at a way to, within a vertically integrated company, perhaps within our own group, take from a Toronto community channel and give to a city station in Winnipeg, if that were the case.
Netflix, Show Me, do not pay taxes in Canada, I understand. They're quite popular in Canada. Do you have any opinion on that scenario? Is that something we should be looking at?
Just to clarify, Show Me, in fact, does pay taxes in Canada. Netflix is the non-Canadian services do not pay Netflix. And yeah, we believe that all services should be operating on a level playing field. So that's something that I think that we would agree with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we move into a second round, and it's a 5-minute round. And we begin with Mr. Van Loan from the Conservatives.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And my questions are for Rogers. I think it's fair to say Canadians have a love-hate relationship with Rogers. They love a Canadian success story that's done well. They love much of the product they get, and then they have things about the company that, or its actions at times, that drive them crazy. And I think that's even true probably for a lot of the people at Rogers too. But that being said, we, having seen it grow to success, want to see it continue to be successful. One of the things I have noted is that when we talk about print delivering news, we hear more and more, for example, that in the Torres Star Empire, it's their local newspapers that are successful, that continue to generate revenue and do well, and that's kind of being used to subsidize the mothership. We're hearing kind of an opposite message from you. I have seen evidence in my kind of local Rogers people that they've taken some tentative steps towards actually delivering local news that could be in parallel. We, of course, have these very compelling political talk shows that people like us get to appear on. We, of course, think those are great. Not sure the community loves them as much. But I, for example, have seen in my own municipality, a community of about 40 to 50,000, that there is the beginnings of what looks like an effort to deliver local news by that Rogers Community Channel, but it always seems like kind of half efforts and tentative efforts. What are the barriers that you face technically or otherwise or in a regulatory way from taking that additional step to delivering the same kind of news that our local newspapers deliver, but on television there?
I thank you for that question. That's a great question. We, in your riding, used to do a newscast. It was called First Local, as you may remember. And in 2010, the CRTC changed its policy on community television and required us to spend and exhibit more access programming, which is programming created by and for the community. Everything we do in community channels is created by and for and with members of the community. But when it came to the daily news show, we felt that it needed to be more produced by the entity itself rather than community produced. And so when the regulation took effect in 2010, we had to withdraw from that program in order to meet the regulatory obligations on access spending. We understood we took a very valuable service away. We had to do that in all the 905s and embrace it. So and embrace the new framework. When we appeared before the Commission in January, we explained to them that if the Commission felt there was a dearth of local news in smaller markets, that if they went back to the pre-2010 access formula, we could reinstate these newscasts. And so that would be one thing, is to support our proposal at the Commission to go back to the access level of 30% rather than 50% in order for us to create those local newscasts.
Okay. When you say 30% rather than 50%, you're getting into technical stuff I'm not that familiar with, so I'll invite you to expand a bit on that. But it seems to me that that was a way of meeting the requirements. I look at what are our, quote, local television stations. In CTV Barrie, I might see one of their cameras at a community event about once every 6 weeks now. They used to be much more frequent than that. I would look and say that that kind of Rogers stuff had the potential to really fill that gap and meet that community need. So could you expand on the 30 to 50 and also identify any other barriers that you might have? And then finally, I'll go to the, well, I'll save the other question until you're done. Okay. Oh, I won't.
Currently, the Commission obliges us to spend 50% of that 2% I explained earlier on access programming. Newscasts are expensive to produce, and so we were typically spending fully 50% on that, which means you have no money to do your local hockey, the local high school football championship, the parades, the political talk shows. And so if we go back to the 70-30, we could afford to do it again and do it the way we used to. So that is step number one, is for the Commission to approve that proposal.
Very quickly, you keep talking about this 2%. Is there any barrier to you dipping into any other Rogers revenues, profits, to make that number higher?
No.
to make the 5% higher. There's nothing that allows you to take money out of your general profits and plow that into local community stuff.
No, nothing prevents us.
So nothing prevents you.
There is no regulatory barrier.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we go to Mr. Sampson for the Liberals.
Yes, thank you. Start off with Rogers. I had a question on your third point in your presentation to CRTC concerning the redistribution of funds. I think that we've been talking about quite a bit so far. What was the response, and is it going to improve as we move forward?
We won't know probably. The Commission hasn't issued its decision. We expect it later this spring, and so we'll know at that point.
And if it was accepted, what would be the strategy that Rogers would bring to the table to improve the services in local and regional areas? We would
reduce the spending we currently spend in Toronto, in the community channel in Toronto, and we would increase spending on regional, smaller community channels, particularly in New Brunswick and Newfoundland, and then we would look to helping improve the production levels in our smaller city stations.
And you don't have a percentage you'd want to put at the table today so that we would know?
It's difficult without knowing what the Commission is going to do. I would assess, once they issue their decision, I'd be happy to come back before you and give you our plans after that.
Merci. Mes prochaines questions sont...
My next question is for the FCN, Ms. Saint-Onge. I greatly appreciated your presentation and the points you raised. They were very interesting. As opposed to Mr. Waugh, I would say that what I like the most, and which my colleague liked the least, were points 2, 3, and 4, or recommendations 2, 3, and 4. They affect us greatly, and I think they go together. You talk a lot about local programming, and that's something I'm really interested in. You say that Radio-Canada should have a greater regional presence, and you also said that high-speed internet should be made an essential service. You're saying that there should be additional investments. Have you looked at that more closely, and what exactly are we talking about in that regard? Well, when it comes to Radio-Canada, the increased budget, which was spread out over 5 years, was a very positive thing, and we hope that it will help the public broadcaster to transition towards new technologies and to reach people who today still don't have access to internet and who get their information either by television or radio. So that was an important thing for us. But our problem now with Radio-Canada, and we hope that eventually Radio-Canada's leadership will take more clear positions. We don't know how they will invest the money. When the last cuts were made, regional news programs went from 60 to 30 minutes. So are leaders going to decide to reinvest in regional or local news? For us, it's a priority. Radio-Canada cut a lot of positions. That was in the 2020 plan. And it doesn't look like they're going to reverse that decision. So it's still quite nebulous for us. The executive of Radio-Canada has to understand that they play an essential role. What we've realized over time is that when Radio-Canada is present in the regions, people will listen to Radio-Canada. So it's something very positive, and we certainly hope that this is going to help transform the regional presence of Radio-Canada. Thank you very much. Now, this is a committee, we represent a lot of regions, so they are important. And another thing I'd like to say is that you said that the former government got directly involved with the CRTC. You said it was not good. I agree with that. I know we have little time left, but could you talk about educational programming? How can we improve that? And if you could tell us what you think briefly. Well, obviously, we have to work with our provincial partners because education is a provincial jurisdiction. But the public has to understand what kind of information is on social media. Facebook uses algorithms to transmit information. And of course, this information will influence users. And therefore, it's really important for people to understand that what they're reading on Facebook is something which it has been calculated through algorithm that they are interested in. For instance, I work for a union organization, and I get the impression that everybody loves unions when I'm on Facebook. But then when I read the news elsewhere, I see, no, that's not the case, because some people don't believe in unions at all. So you see what the problem is with advertising on social media. So we really need media that presents information professionally with a code of ethics.
Thank you. And I want to thank both groups of witnesses for coming. We appreciated what you had to say, lots of meat in what you gave us, and I want to thank everyone for staying on time. So we're going to move into the next session now, so I would ask everyone to say their goodbyes in about a minute. Thank you. To our orders of the day. Thank you. We got any information? May I have the committee please come back where witnesses are waiting? We don't have a full. We have before us two sets of witnesses again. We have Transcontinental Inc. and the DBC Communications Inc. and they will share their 10 minutes in a 5 and 5. So I will give you each Note when you have 1 minute left on each of your presentations so that you can finish on time. And the next group is the Public Interest Advocacy Center, and we have Ms. Lau and Mr. White. And for DBC, we have Mr. Chartier, and for Transcontinental, Mr. Olivier. So we shall begin with Transcontinental for 5 minutes, please.
Yes, I want to thank the committee for having us here. My name is François Olivier. I'm the CEO of Transcontinental, which is a Canadian public company listed on Toronto Stock Exchange. We're active in 2 businesses at Transcontinental. Just before we start, we're not exactly going to share 5-5. You know, we might not be that way, but it's the same issue we want to discuss. At Transcontinental, I have 2 businesses. Manufacturing, we're the largest printer in Canada. We print everything from retail flyers for all retailers in Canada to the Globe and Mail to a lot of things. $1.5 billion in manufacturing. And our media sector is $575 million, which $235 million is revenue and local media, local content we produce. And 5 provinces, Quebec, the Atlantic region, and Saskatchewan. We own 159 community paper across those provinces, and we have 143 websites that are, you know, a complement to the paper product. So we also produce a lot of digital content, local digital content. We have more than 1,700 people that produce and work on that local content in those provinces, more than 1,000 people in Quebec. So we produce the Courrier du Sud, where Mr. Nantel is a deputy in Newfoundland. We produce in the Telegram, you know, and in Granby we produce L'Express. So most of your writing, we own a paper and we cover your activities. And I will let Benoit introduce his company and who he represents also.
Merci François. Alors je me présente, je suis Benoit Chartier, je suis président éditeur de DBC.
Thank you, François. My name is Benoit Chartier. I'm wearing 2 hats today. I'm also the president of Hebdo Québec, a local independent press association in Quebec. DBC Communication is a press group which edits 3 papers and also an agricultural paper. And the Courrier de Saint-Hyacinthe, the dean of the French newspapers in Quebec, we have been in operation for many, many years. We employ about 100 people, 20 journalists. We're very involved in the Saint-Hyacinthe region. I would like to talk about Hebdo Québec, which is a group of independent editors like myself. There are about 20 editors representing about 30 newspapers. We're all independent. We don't belong to any larger newspaper chain. We put out 1 million copies per week. We have 1.5 million readers every week, 800,000 monthly unique visitors to the websites. Advertising revenue is assessed at 52 million, 400 employees, 111 journalists, and 33 photographers. So when it comes to Quebec, DBC and the Association de la Presse Hebdo-Québec, we reach about 99, we represent about 99.9% of papers in Quebec.
And right into what we want to share with you this morning. We want to share the challenges that our industry have since, I would say, 2009, 2010. I want to explain how our business work. Basically, company like ours or independent like Benoit, and a weekly business, we solely live on advertising dollars. So we have to pay for the content, the journalists pay for the salesmen, pay for the printing, and pay for the distribution, which is in our case, for most of our product, total market coverage. So we send a paper to every home. So we don't have any subscription revenue. So the readers don't pay anything for the content. So we solely live on ad dollar for our community paper. Some of our weekly or dailies in Atlantic Canada would have about 20-25% of their revenue coming from readers paying through subscriptions or newsstand. But the bulk of the industry is living on advertising, and I'm sure you heard that. And in a sense, advertiser for years, for many, many years, for decennies, have you know, support and paid for the local content that citizens enjoy. And basically, who are our advertisers? and those businesses, they are local businesses, local and regional businesses, not the big retailer and the national retailer. Those people deal with Transcontinental, but they print flyers for their deals, and they tend to advertise less in these weekly paper. So our advertisers are local in nature, and our readers are local in nature. And basically what we have done, if we move to the next page, you know, why we're here in a sense is we're very well expressed on page 5. You know, we have seen since 2005 the internet, you know, at that point, if you look at the green bar, was about $500 million that they were capturing in ad dollar, and 2014 was $3.8 billion. So the internet is capturing advertising dollar away from TV, traditional TV, specialty TV, radio, and daily newspaper, and also community newspaper. It's fair to say that community paper, you know, with a lot of local content have been less affected than the other medium, but things have changed in the last 24 months. You know, where we were seeing 2, 3, 4% decrease 3 or 4 years ago, daily newspaper were suffering 10 to 15%. Now we're getting to be in the same zone. So you could see on that graph, the blue bar is the advertising market for all community paper across Canada. So you would see that all of our papers, our paper, Metroland papers, all the independent paper across Canada, were capturing about, at the peak in 2009, $1.2 billion in ad revenue. And in 2010, it started to go down. And you could see that in 2014, we have lost 36% of our ad revenue. And I can tell you what the number is in 2015, and I'm running the business in 2016. I could tell you now, to make a round number, that we've lost about 50% of our revenue. And if your business is only living on ad dollar and you lose 50% of your revenue, I don't know if it's media, any kind of business, you need to react. You cannot lose half of your revenue and run the same business model. And where's that money going? It's going to people that produce zero local content. People like Facebook, Google, and all these guys, they are aggregator of content, and they are people who do social media, which is, you know, like in French we say les discussions de perron d'église. This is not, you know, church porch discussion. This is not curated content. So they don't produce content, but they capture a lot of the ad dollar. So what have we done as an industry? For sure, we didn't come here to ask you to do our job. We've been doing our job in the last 5 years. And when you lose 50% of your revenue, you have two things you could do. You try to catch the, you know, the wave of digital. So we invest a lot in digital, produced a lot of digital product around content, some not around content, some around advertising. For Transcontinental, we capture about 10% of our business now is digital. So on $240 million, we generate $24 million of digital revenue. And our digital products are very much liked by the community. But you could see the relationship. You lose 50% of your revenue, and when you catch the wave of trying to create new revenue, you only create 10%. So you still have a big gap. The second thing we've looked at is we've looked at our costs and say, you know, if we cannot make the shortfall on revenue, we have to look at our costs. And Transcontinental, being a consolidator in that industry, helped a lot making sure that we took a lot of costs out of the system through economies of scale, best practice sharing, and stuff like that. So in a sense, the fact that we're a large group, I think we saved a lot of paper that would have died being on their own and not have the mean of a large corporation. So we cut on the printing costs, on the distribution costs, on the administration costs, on the sales costs. The only place we cannot cut is on the content, because the content is the heart of what we do. And if we cut there, we don't have a product. We're done. And basically, also, we have a lot of challenge.
1 minute?
Move from a... Yeah, just 1 minute. Okay. I guess I will finish my presentation and the question period. But basically, we move from a single product organization, producing one product on paper, to a multiple product organization selling very complex product on the internet. So this is a very tough transition. Also, a lot of our weekly paper moved from an organization that was creating content once a week. Once a week. You have a week to produce your story, a lot of time to do interview, to a news organization that need to produce content every single minute. So it's a big challenge and a big ask for our journalists. So our business is changing a lot, and I'll speak about the content later. And basically what we're asking is for help in a transitionary period. We've been supporting this for 5 years, but we're at the point where we will need to cut in the content or some product will disappear because we don't have enough time to make this transition to the internet. And we're asking on the last page, on page 8, for various part of the government, and maybe to give us, and I think it's key word, transition period. We're not asking for help forever. We know we need to be a standalone business, but we think that Canadian Heritage can maybe help for a period of 3 to maybe 5 years to help news organizations that support journalists and support content and region for a certain period of time, to give us the time to make that transition. If not, the paper will disappear. That would be my guess.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now we go to the Public Interest Advocacy Center, Ms. Lau and Mr. White. And will you be sharing your time, or will one of you speak?
We'll be sharing our time.
Then be mindful, please, of the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee, thank you for inviting the Public Interest Advocacy Center, or PIAC, to appear this morning to discuss the media and local communities. My name is Alicia Lau, legal counsel at PIAC, and with me is Jeff White, external counsel to PIAC. PIAC is a nonprofit organization and charity that provides legal and research services on behalf of consumer interests, including vulnerable consumers. In communications policy, PIAC advocates for fair and affordable access to a diversity of program which serves Canadians' needs. PIAC has, PIAC has intervened extensively in CRTC proceedings relating to broadcasting policy and on numerous broadcasting, licensing, and acquisition matters, and in television in particular. PIAC has one key message for the committee today. Local television is important, and it can flourish in the future. To achieve this, PIAC has 3 specific recommendations. Private broadcasters must fulfill their promises to provide local programming, and especially local news. Any funding support should be allocated in a way that is accountable, prioritizes small independent stations, and focuses on encouraging local stations to develop sustainable business models. Number 2, the CBC Radio Canada needs to be a strong public broadcaster with a mandate to be engaged with and even extend service where necessary to local communities. And third, the importance of nonprofit community media must be recognized in policy and supported in funding. Despite changes in the way Canadians access local programming and local news, local television remains important to Canadians. This is especially so for many rural communities, which may not be connected to broadband. Local television continues to be a vital link to the rest of the country. A 2014 poll commissioned by the CRTC found that 81% of Canadians said local news was an important type of television programming, and 53% said that local programming generally was important. In the U.S., a 2015 Pew Research Center study found that nearly 9 in 10 residents follow local news closely, and local TV was still the dominant source of local news in all 3 cities studied. The majority of respondents accessed local news on local TV combined with or separate from the web or social networking sites. Even with the growth in online-only news sources, news produced by so-called traditional media, such as print and television, still play the dominant role in keeping democratic institutions accountable. Even the top news websites in Canada are online versions of traditional news media, such as the CBC and the CTV.
Good morning. The Canadian television market has experienced significant ownership concentration over the last 15 years. 79% of commercial television revenues are now controlled by 4 vertically integrated private broadcasters, many of which also control massive stables of radio stations. Yet the major broadcasters, although continuing to operate profitable television media assets, are letting down local communities outside of major urban markets and marginalized communities within urban markets. They've significantly cut staff, especially at their local stations. Bell Media cut 380 positions last November. Rogers Media cut 200 jobs in January. Shaw has adopted a model which centralizes the production of all newscasts in one location, primarily Toronto. And Rogers has completely eliminated multilingual newscasts across all of its Omni stations, ending access to over-the-air multilingual news for ethnocultural communities. This is despite the fact that during the 2014 license renewals before the CRTC, Omni acknowledged that these programs played an important role in the communities that Omni served. PIAC recognizes that conventional station advertising revenues have indeed fallen over the last few years. At the same time, other pay and subscription-based channels owned by the same national broadcasters are doing very, very well. Many of these broadcasters, upon acquiring local stations, promised that they would use their size, scale, expertise, and diversity of broadcasting and distribution assets to continue investing in local television. That generally hasn't been happening. The large private national conventional broadcasters should continue to have obligations to produce and air local programming, and especially local news. PIAC recognizes the challenges faced by smaller independent local stations, and to the extent that any fund may be created to support local stations, that fund should prioritize these independent stations and focus on helping all stations develop sustainable business models. Such a fund could also draw on the proceeds from the planned repurposing and auctioning of the 600 megahertz radio frequency spectrum band, which will, as a result, displace many local over-the-air stations. PIAC supports the creation of a fund to assist those stations which would be reassigned. Given the importance of the issues raised in this committee consultation, this fund could also be earmarked specifically for the production of local programming, particularly local news. On the subject of the CBC and Radio Canada, the public broadcaster has a very important role to play, and PIAC believes that the federal government's budget proposal to invest $675 million in CBC Radio Canada over 5 years is a step in the right direction towards Canada having that strong national public broadcaster. However, PIAC believes this funding and any strategic plan for the CBC Radio Canada should not focus solely on the transition to digital media, but also ensure that local communities are adequately served by CBC stations, particularly where broadband access isn't available, reliable, or affordable.
Even with the popularity of digital media, independent, nonprofit community media still play a vital role in informing, engaging, and empowering local communities and marginalized groups. This is especially true in Canada, where many communities do not have a local over-the-air station. At the recent CRTC review of local and community television, numerous community groups and associations passionately describe the ways they are trying to step up to provide programming which informs and engages their communities. Independent community and campus radio stations have emerged and developed throughout Canada, with approximately 105 community and 46 campus radio stations in 2014. However, in television, more space must be created for the establishment and growth of nonprofit community stations which understand and can serve the needs of their communities. PIAC recommends that the committee recognize and support the ongoing importance of independent nonprofit community media, both from a policy and a funding perspective. This could include a heritage study on community media, a national community media strategy, resources which provide training and administrative support to community stations, and initiatives which could provide some ongoing funding to community stations. In sum, local television is important and can flourish in the future. Even in a digital era, local communities should be able to access programming which serves their needs through as many platforms as possible, including, at this time, traditional local television. This will take an approach in which public, private, and community broadcasters all draw from their strengths and resources to fully serve Canadian communities. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today, and we welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to go to are questions. The first round is a 7-minute round, and that 7-minute includes questions and answers. So I would like everyone to be as succinct as they can possibly do. So we now begin for 7 minutes. Mr. O'Regan from the Liberals.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Merci pour les présentations.
Thank you for the presentations.
Olivier Chartier, je commence par vous.
Mr. Olivier, Mr. Chartier, I'll begin with you.
Real-time analytics, I've been reading about this, and from what I understand, it's revolutionizing the newspaper industry because now newspapers and editors can know how many people are reading their work, how many people, how they're reading it, through what devices, and what sites they're going to, how long readers are sticking with those articles, what ones they're ignoring. And from what I understand, newsrooms like the New York Times and the Washington Post are completely fixated with this. One quote I read was, the biggest and least talked about development in traditional print media as it moves to digital is ratings. It now has ratings. Newspapers now have ratings, which only television had previously. And I wonder if real-time analytics is something that's affected your business.
Yes, actually we do sell that in the local community because we're a large corporation. We own some of these companies that are like a market of digital advertising. So you could buy in this in real time, and
Real-time bidding. Yeah.
We do that at Transcontinental, and we actually develop a product for local communities which have nothing to do with our content, but basically what we do is we take the call to action that the advertiser wants to put on the paper on our websites, and we make this appear, and we're able to buy or locate traffic around that community and make their ad appear on various websites through programmatic. So this is a service that we are offering in the community for the advertiser. That have nothing to do with our contracts, with our content business. So we have three products. You could advertise in the paper, advertise on our websites, or have your ad appear on other people's websites that we're buying because we're a large corporation and we have access to this, so that the call to action of local retailer could be seen in the house where they do business on various websites that are non-transcontinental websites. So we do offer that services. But we have a lot of new competitor on the web that offer advertising to our local businesses. And the challenge also is a lot of the local businesses face their own challenge, their own competition. For sure, when Walmart built a huge center in a community, some local business that tend to be very supportive of our community paper, if they die, Walmart have other means to advertise, which is not these papers. So it's not only our problem; it's also if the local business community get weaker, we're getting weaker also.
What's interesting with these analytics is they're starting to get results across the industry, and a lot of it's not surprising and kind of consistent. You get videos and podcasts are very popular, people, kind of short items of interest that can be easily read on smartphones. Almost anything that has the words Donald Trump in it apparently does very well. But I think what's heartening, for me anyway, is that perhaps counterintuitively and very surprising, deeply reported features and investigative pieces. Like, for instance, New York Times did some coverage, long-standing coverage on ISIS and their barbarity and that drew an incredible amount of traffic. In fact, it drew readership levels that they never would have gotten through print. What doesn't do well are those 600-word pieces about yesterday's news. One quote that I read is, this is the talk that you hear in newsrooms across the world, and it's a great cause for concern that those pieces aren't getting attention because, if you look back, Watergate really was it began as a story of a burglary. And when you look at well, it was featured by anybody who saw the movie Spotlight, which is won Best Picture. Mm-hmm. That was a huge story that unearthed the Catholic Church in the United States, and for that matter around the world. And it began with one small story about one priest. So therein lies the rub. People want to read deeply investigative articles, but they only begin with shorter articles. I mean, you guys obviously want an audience. You want an audience that's going to stick. You want an audience that is going to subscribe. How do these, fairly recent findings? I mean, I'm reading this in a New York Times article that only came out on Sunday, but I mean, how does that affect your business?
Well, obviously, we're not the New York Times. Most of our paper have 1, 2, or 3 journalists, or 4. Basically, if you go back to my presentation and on page 7, I will express our problem in a very simple way. There's nothing more that our journalists would like to do investigation, and that we give them time and space in the paper, on the websites, to do investigation. And I think they play a vital role in all the community to make sure that all the story about City Hall, about what you guys are doing, are made public. Like if the friend of the mayor wants to disown a land that he shouldn't do, our people put that in front page. I guess the land is not going to change zoning. They play a role in the community, but
scalable. I mean, the New York Times and the Boston Globe can afford a whole room full of people.
Yes,
but you guys, but on the flip side, you guys can afford one.
Yeah,
and really, that's what we're talking about.
It costs a lot of money to do. It's a lot of journalists and a lot of time, and we have 3 journalists in our newsroom, so we do what we can do with it.
But if you look at page 7 of my document, I will explain how our business work. If you, I'll do that in 1 minute. So my business works that you produce a paper, you need to have half of the page that are ad dollar and half of the page is content. That's how it works, because you solely live on ad dollar. So if you send your people selling in the community, and the community says we will support you with 16 page of ad, then you produce 16 page of content. Then you produce a 32-page paper, and then you could do a lot of investigation because you have 16 page of space. If your people go into the community and the community support you with 8 page of advertising, I guess you're producing 8 page of content. And then people start to phone us and making comments like, Monsieur Olivier, I'm paying my tax. Why are you not covering this? Why are you not covering my press conference? Why are you not covering this? I can't. I only have 8 page, and I have to feed the websites on top of it. I only have 3 journalists, so we do less.
The pressure to have those ads in no way affects the editorial content.
Mr. Reagan.
It doesn't affect the quality, but it does affect the quantity.
Thank you very much. And now we go to Mr. Van Loan for the Conservatives.
Thank you. Well, my question is for the Public Interest Advocacy Group. This study has been, unfortunately, largely a dialogue between those who work for media outlets, or those who are the media outlets, and us. And there has been a dearth of people speaking for the consumers, which is why I search high and low for folks like you to have as witnesses. I think it's important that the consumer voice be heard as part of this conversation, rather than just those on the other end of the spectrum. Now, one of the things that you have been very active in advocating for as a consumer group was this notion of these basic skinny packages, which the CRTC then went on to approve. I've been reading conflicting reports about nobody's grabbing onto it, or a lot of people are grabbing onto it. It's going to really hurt the ability to get revenues, or it's going to have no impact on them for the long run. What do you think about the desirability of it? Is it successful, and how will that have, if it becomes more widespread, the use of them? What kind of impact will it have on our interest in local news?
Yeah, so I'll try to address, I think, several parts of that question. So there are several reasons for proposing kind of what is actually skinny basic and kind of pick and pay together, which was, Rogers mentioned before in the previous meeting that the way consumers are accessing content is changing, and that's partly why PIAC and other consumer groups had advocated for these different options, which was in a world where consumers want to access content, they want choice, and they want flexibility to choose their content. Many were getting much more frustrated with their large bundles, which they felt they were paying too much for. So this really was a way not to force people to change. If you like your bundles, you can stay with your bundles. But if you wanted to downsize, you could go for a skinny basic and then be able to pick and pay on top of that if that suited your family's needs. And the pick and pay won't be fully integrated until December, so it's really, we'll have to wait for a few more months to really just see what the impact of these new options will be. And then just in relation to your question on local stations, actually the skinny basic packages should include all the local stations and in some regional stations as well, so that option itself shouldn't affect whether Canadians are receiving their local over-the-air stations.
Okay, so I take it from you then that if we're hearing from witnesses that that's one of the things causing a problem for them, your view is that it is not going to cause a problem for delivering local news?
Not in relation to your local over-the-air stations or your community stations.
Okay. Were you here for the evidence from Rogers today?
Yes, we were. You're sitting
Okay.
second row there.
Well, you heard me ask a question about local news in my neck of the woods, which is I'm kind of the north end of the GTA, though it feels much more remote when you're there in a media context. I talked about how I'd see a CTV2 camera about once every 6 months would hit the constituency. CBC, I would have to count in years since the last time I saw a CBC camera. The closest CBC station is downtown Toronto, and they think they need to get a passport, I think, to go north of St. Clair Avenue. So the chance of them coming up to Georgina at the north end of York Region, it's been literally years since I've seen them cover a news story up there with an actual person with a camera on the ground. I talked about how Rogers seemed to be making that move to fill some of that gap with local news. They say that in their evidence here that they were doing it, but then there was this tweak to the 50-50, or they're limiting the amount of their 2% local take for community broadcasting. They limited the amount that could be used for actually their news production. I wondered if you could comment on that, the desirability of them moving into that space, the desirability of that regulation being changed back in a way that would facilitate it, or the desirability of them reaching into some of their own funds to do that.
Okay, so first of all, in relation to local news, generally our position is that the local stations are in a better position to provide local news because of that history and of having kind of the professionalism, and it is usually labor-intensive reporting. In regards to community stations, and if they want to move into local information and local news, in our view, the access programming thresholds, the requirements set by the CRTC, doesn't actually prevent Rogers from moving into local news, because the access programming just means that the idea needs to come from a community member and that they need to be involved in producing that programming. So, and that to us really is what a community channel is about. You know, it's about engaging the community members and making sure that they have a say in what's being aired in their community channel. So in our view, there is a way to work access programming into local news. Does that answer your question? I could also move into Rogers' proposal about redistributing their
Sure.
2%.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So very quickly, I think you would just have to tread very carefully in considering Rogers' proposal. If it's the same as what they had submitted to the CRTC, the urban markets that they had proposed moving money from were just Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. And in their proposal, they could move the money or have the flexibility to reallocate either to community stations or to over-the-air stations in smaller communities. But that could actually mean anywhere outside of Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. So it could also be Calgary and Edmonton and their Omni and City stations there. So I know they mentioned Bathurst, New Brunswick, but perhaps there could be a concern that the money wouldn't actually go to Bathurst. It could go to Edmonton. So just we would just have a concern making sure that they are transparent about how they want to reallocate their funding.
Okay. And then you had your first recommendation was that private broadcasters must fulfill their commitments locally. You spoke about Omni as your example of that. Are there other examples where you think commitments are made to local news content that are not being fulfilled?
Well, we'd say generally right now the obligations are for local programming, not local news. Omni, I think, we've mentioned kind of the budget cuts, and I know the CBC as well decided to cut their late evening newscasts and their weekend newscasts in Ottawa. And Ottawa is actually an urban market. We consider it an urban market. So we believe one of the recommendations moving forward is to make sure that the conditions of license are specific to local news, because that is what Canadians value, and local news still means a lot to them.
Thank you. That's it. Mr. Van Loon, thank you very much. And now I go to Mr. We're sharing time here between Mr. Nantel and Ms. Sans-Souci from the NDP. Thank you.
Oui, ma question va s'adresser.
My question is for Benoit Chartier. In our regions, local media is really important, and sometimes it's the only way to get information on your region, as my colleague said. Even if you're 50 kilometers from a a big city, being in a small area is like being on a different planet sometimes. This morning we heard about the challenge with regard to producing regional information, and we also heard it was important to let Canadians know how important a role professional journalists play in a democracy. So in this position, in this time of transition, can you tell us about what your contribution is to the development of our community through your operations? At the Courrier de Saint-Hyacinthe, we have 10 reporters which cover our territory, and they, for 164 years, have been covering our city. A newspaper is a pillar of democracy. That's the long and the short of it. Digitization has been growing exponentially in the last 2 years, as my colleague said, and it is imperiling our democracy. Now, we have a lot of reporters in our region, and if we didn't have it, we would be questioning everything. As Mr. O'Regan said, without these reporters, we couldn't conduct investigations, as François said. We might not know that the friend of the mayor owns a property which is having a zoning change. So freedom of the press is inherent to the strength of a democracy, and freedom of the press should exist everywhere, including in the regions. Because advertising revenues are going down, it's clear that people like us, newspaper editors, are stuck. This is a downward spiral, which means that sooner or later some papers might close, and when that happens in a given region, the MP doesn't get coverage, be it at the federal or provincial level. The mayor doesn't get coverage, and Facebook, Google, and Yahoo won't do the job because they're based in San Francisco or elsewhere in the world. They collect advertising dollars from everywhere. I think that it is high time that we take a very close look at this, and we take a closer look at the challenge of digitization and the impact on advertising revenues. And I think it's going to take a lot of help from the government to support journalists working in regions. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of our witnesses. Thank you, Ms. Lau and Mr. White. Now, this issue, of course, concerns us all, and I would like to say, for the benefit of all of my colleagues here, that when Mr. Olivier, you said that you might have to cut some products. In your case, it doesn't mean that you're keeping tomato soup and getting rid of chicken soup. It means closing down papers in the regions. Yes, we're a large corporation, and as it now stands, we are supporting several newspapers operating at a loss in the order of millions of dollars, actually. As citizens, we feel we have a social role to play, but I also have shareholders. I'm a listed company, and at a certain point when the financials don't make sense anymore, you have to change things, bring together titles. One paper which used to cover one city might have to cover 2 or 3. The problem is that we are in a transition period. Now, we're very good at selling advertising. We've been doing this for 40 years, and for 40 years we've been improving the way we do things. We have to do well online. We have a product which people want. They want local contact. They call us, and they're telling us they want more. So the demand is there, but as an organization, we need time to become a digital organization as well. I think we can do that. People are following us on paper, they're following us online, and they're following us on their mobile platforms. But we're reinventing the business, and this has certain challenges. We're a news organization, but we also have to become a technological organization. So we're asking you, give us some temporary support to produce content. And if we invest our own money in technology, if we create new high-tech jobs, if we create new software applications, can we get some kind of tax credit? Because we are trying to adapt to keep local information alive. We don't want a dollar from you if we don't invest a dollar ourselves. Thank you for your testimony. And I don't know how this would affect Saskatchewan and Eastern Canada. It's no joke. Almost everywhere, local papers are, or rather, you have the greatest concentration of local papers in your area. You've got all the operations in place for that. Now, is the situation similar in Canada's other provinces? I think the answer is yes. Is it? Yes. It is identical elsewhere. I'd like to come back to your recommendations on page 8. You said that this involves the Department of Canadian Heritage. It should cover 50% of local content production cost. You're asking Innovation Sciences and Development Canada to help you support investment. And you're saying that all government organizations should buy advertising in your papers. This seems very relevant because if there's advertising, an ad created by a local designer, well, it's good. And a local fruit producer might be happy to have a local designer create the advertisement for its products. What would our communities be without community activities to support these papers? Because we don't want to have to get all of our things at IKEA. So your media products are very important. Your participation here is very important. And I know that you have the unanimous supports of the mayors in Quebec. Thank you.
We can only take a 3-minute round instead of a 5-minute round this time because of time constraints. And so we will begin with Mr. Waugh. Oh, sorry. Last 7 minutes, Mr. Breton. I don't think we might have time for the other one.
Is it a 7 minutes or 3 minutes?
No, you're 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Merci de votre présence aujourd'hui.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here today. Your testimony is quite important, and I'd like to follow up on what my colleagues, Mr. Nattel and Ms. Sanssouci, said. In my riding of Granby, almost 100% of citizens read 3 newspapers that you put out, the Granby Express, the Journal de Chambly, and the Pensée de Bagotte. So almost all of the citizens in my riding read those papers. I represent a regional riding. And I'm very concerned by the future of these papers, because these papers are a richness for us. They are important. They are on the ground in our communities. And I agree with my colleagues who said, who's going to cover municipal councils? Who's going to cover the festivals of Valcourt? Who's going to cover regional activities? If you disappear, nobody will talk about these things anymore. Your papers bring people together. You represent a richness, a wealth for our municipalities. Again, you bring us all together, and what you have to say is relevant, and it makes sense for you to be here today. And when I hear talk about the possible closing down of these papers, I worry about that, and not just me. Everyone in my riding would worry about that. You were given, unfortunately, your time to give your presentation had been cut off, and you can complete that now if you want. But perhaps you want to speak with the recommendations there. We talked about recommendations of page 8. Perhaps you can tell us a little more about those recommendations, because just looking at these, I generally support them. So maybe you can give us more details on what you're proposing. Well, in my view, the government can support us in 2 ways. When it comes to, it can create programs for tax credits and maybe subsidies. We have 2 challenges in this period of transition. One, to maintain the quantity and quality of information. So we would need help to transition our content to other platforms. Revenue Canada can help us there. If we spend $150,000 in one region, can we get some kind of support, subsidies or tax credits? And this would go straight towards the content, because everything is content in this business. Second, our other big challenge is that we can't always appear before the committee to ask for help. We have to become self-sufficient. And we can only do this if we can migrate to digital platforms. And that is a huge challenge to go from paper to the web. We have to invest. In the last 4 years, Transcontinental invested $40 million to move towards digital platforms. We sold for $24 million in advertising, and it's going to take us a long time to recoup our investments. So we're going to need a second level of help, and that might come from the Department of Innovation and Science. If the government can give us a tax credit for our investment, that would be good. But we're told constantly that all federal and government programs do not apply to us because we're too big. So could someone look into that? Because when we start closing down papers, I get calls from premiers, from ministers, from mayors, and MPs. Everybody tells me, hey, you can't do that. So that would be my second request. And this could be a way for the government to support us. Another way to do that is that the government advertises in our papers and online. And yet their share of advertising revenues has gone down. So if the government told all departments, we want to support local content over the next 3 or 4 years, these organizations produce Canadian news. They have print, digital, and innovative products. So can all departments please buy advertising on these platforms so the government could be a little more strategic and support us with their advertising dollars? As it now stands, there's absolutely no strategy in place. There's a lot of investment being made on Google, Facebook, or the government buys a lot of ad on Google and Facebook. These are two American corporations. They make billions of dollars. They take the money out of our country. Sure, these are great platforms, but at the end of the day, we reach everyone with our papers and with our platforms. We also believe that independent papers have to be supported. I represent them. 20 independent editors, 33 papers. We don't have a distribution network like Transcontinental. They also do packaging, so they can move things around on different platforms, but we can't. We're focused on putting out our weekly papers, and our revenues are going down. Clearly, the government could be a great partner to us, as François said, especially when it comes to advertising. I think the government could have a great strategy to help local media. Local media is part of the ecosystem of the riding. And this covers you. We cover your press conferences. We cover Valcourt, Austin. I cover all of these events on the ground. Facebook would never do that. Google would never do that either. The last point relates more to the provincial level. Provinces have different formulas, and we support the idea of recycling fees, but the formulas brought in 2010 and 2011 by certain provinces where the circulation fell by 40%, and yet we're still paying the same recycling fees. And we've been raising this issue with the province for many years. It doesn't make sense for us to pay the same fee as we did in 2011 when our circulation has dropped by 40%. This is $1.4 million a year for our company. We're not saying we don't want to pay, but maybe the formula should be changed so it reflects circulation numbers better. And these are, again, we're just asking for temporary help if we make the necessary investments.
We go to the second round. Mr. Waugh from the Conservatives.
Recycling fees, that was a big story today, actually. So, yeah, you've hit the point. You're selling less paper, so you should be paying less. I would agree with you there.
Yes.
I'm just going to pick up on Mr. O'Regan. It's interesting. I flew home last Friday, and on the second page of every national paper, they were blowing their horn about how many eyeballs are reading per week on the newspaper industry. you know. So I feel your pain. You know, and if you ever lose the advertising on the flyers, which you are going to, you must know that the flyer industry in papers is going down. Eventually, it is going to go digital. You're done. That's billions of dollars in this country from coast to coast, those flyers. So how, you know, I see the storm clouds, you must see them. I mean, the flyers are what make your newspaper.
Yeah, the flyer, in a sense, they support the distribution of all these local paper. They incur a lot less costs because they are distributed with the flyers. Actually, a lot of people have been predicting, like you, since 2009, the disappearance of printed flyers. We just ran a study just lately where it's still very popular, where only 9% of the Canadians look at the deal only digital, which means 39% of Canadians just looked on paper, which means 91% look at the paper through digital. So it's still and I won't talk a lot about that, but I think we still have a lot of years with the printed flyer, but eventually, yes, something will happen. But when that happens, if that happens, it's going to create more pressure on community paper, because right now they're pigging back on the 20 or 25 retailers that are paying for the distribution network, and they jumped on that. If these guys disappear, it's going to create more pressure on the community paper business model.
But you are on the stock exchange, so it's hard for government to give you what you want. You know, you're at this point for the government and this point for stockholders.
Well, it depends what is important. You could speak with your wallet as advertiser. It's cool to advertise on all these digital products. We have to look at, are they really doing the job for you as an advertiser? If you don't support the industry, then the industry might go. Maybe you don't care, and that's okay too. That's one way. And the other way is we are an industry. We are a business who's willing to invest, who's willing to fight for its survival. I think governments support a lot of other industry, gaming industry, forest industry, but the media industry and local community were unknown. Nobody seems to be aware of our challenges. That's why I took the time to come here this morning. If it's not important for you guys, I'm okay with that. But if you call me when I close the paper and you're riding, then you know, I will remember that I came here to tell you so.
Thank you, Mr. Olivier. Thank you. And now I go to Mr. Sampson for 3 minutes, please.
I've given my questions to my colleague.
Ms. Debussen.
Most of our discussion for this part has been about advertising and the direction of advertising dollars. And wanted to talk to you. You've made some suggestions about government plans. What about tax deductions for advertising? Have you looked at that? And pointed that line 8521 for advertising focuses on deductions for advertising broadcast newspapers, doesn't mention anything about digital. And that line also refers to Canadian markets and targeting it. And in fact says in the commentary that you cannot deduct expenses for advertising directed mainly at a Canadian market when you advertise with a foreign broadcaster. So I'm just curious about what you think might be something about the application of that kind of a deduction for the newspaper industry now that we're moving towards a digital platform.
If I understand correctly, what you're talking about, you would offer a deduction to our customer if they advertise with us, making their advertising cheaper for them to buy from us? Is it what you're talking about, or are you talking about
as opposed to going through a foreign digital platform?
That could be, but you know, if you were a local advertiser 20 years ago, your job was pretty simple. You in many communities, you had no TV stations, so you were splitting your budget between three things. You put an ad on the yellow page once a year. you were advertising in the weekly paper, and if you were rich, you were doing a little bit of local radio. Today, if you run a local businesses, you need to be present on the web, and this is not one thing. This is not one product. It's getting to be very, very complex, and a lot of our customer and advertiser are doing like us, trial and error. So they're throwing some good money sometimes at bad product to try to find what works for them on the internet. So that's why anything that would help our customer, make the right choice on the internet, or us building the right product on the internet, because I am totally convinced that the weekly paper community are not going to be the sole way of local businesses to advertise on the internet.
Jump in, it's just more that the idea would be, because you've been commented about advertising on Facebook, which is not a Canadian platform, and that you are moving to digital platforms yourself, that a tax deduction would say that people spending advertising on Canadian digital platforms would receive the deduction. You could not.
That would help us. That would make us more competitive. But that would not stop them for advertising on those platforms. And honestly, sometimes I think they should. I don't think it's a bad thing. What we talk about is more a direct help in a transition period, I suppose is what you're talking about, which is building a competitive advantage. I mean, any help will help, but I think we're at the point now that some direct support and direct signal about if newspaper publishers are willing to invest in content or willing to invest in digital product, they are supported in a way.
Thank you, Mr. Olivier.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Bruson. I wanted to thank the witnesses for appearing here today and for the excellent questions. I think Mr. Bruson mentioned that we talked a lot about advertising, and I'm just going to make a comment. When I go online to read stuff, I literally skim over the advertising. I don't even read them. So I just don't know if people are getting bang for their buck advertising on digital platforms. I really don't, because I can, whereas I read them in the newspapers, I really do. I can't help but read them. So I just wanted to comment on that in terms of bang for your buck on advertising. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. May I have a motion to adjourn, Mr. Van Loan? Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.